This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, this is Maureen Bogey.
And this is Dylan Hackworth.
And you are listening to the Creep Street Podcast.
Oh, and what a time to be listening to the Creep Street Podcast.
That's right, everyone. Welcome to October.
Ooh, you feel that? Good golly, it is. Ooh, man, it feels, the water is fine here on Creep Street.
Ooh, it feels nice. We're in our element, everybody. This is our time of year. This is our zone, baby.
Amen. Amen.
And we are so happy to be celebrating together with you today.
Absolutely.
And this is just a quick reminder to go back maybe now. This could be a good time to go back and listen to some older Creep Street episodes.
Oh, good point. Especially if you're new to the gang, if you're new to Creep Street, please venture. Go through that back catalog.
Please do. I mean, the past couple Octobers, we've had some great extra spooky, extra scary, extra what the actual heck is going on in those episodes.
Ooh, very creepy stuff. Of course, we do creepy all year, but there's something special about October.
It really is. So welcome to October, everybody. This is our first October episode. We're so happy to be here with ya. Now, please remember to like, rate, subscribe, leave a review, share us on social media, anything like that to help out the podcast is so appreciated, and we're so grateful for it. And we see when you do it, and it means the world to us. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes.
If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can check that out at Creep Street Podcast. Twitter, we're at Creep Street Pod. We're also on TikTok. We've got a Facebook, and on our Facebook, we have a subgroup called Citizens of the Milky Way.
Ooh.
There, anyone can just post any memes or articles, anything like that. You'll also get a little bit of a sneak peek every week into what we're doing, what our episode is going to be.
That's right. You get to find out a few days early what we're cooking up.
That's right. So feel free to check that out on Facebook at Citizens of the Milky Way. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
One episode a week is just not enough.
It's the results are in, folks, and it's not.
Especially this time of year. You need some more of that content, baby.
Absolutely.
And the good news is we have the solution to your woes.
Ooh, yes, we do.
It is at patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast. There we have all sorts of bonus content up there for you, some great goodies, anywhere from movie commentaries, movie reviews, short stories, spoiler casts, all the way up to full bonus episodes.
Oh, yeah, baby, yeah.
We had a great bonus episode this past month. It was very fun.
Mm-hmm.
We had a full-ass episode there. We watched Room 237 together.
Yes, the documentary Room 237. We did a watch-along of that.
A lot of great stuff on there. So feel free to check that out at patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast.
Oh, yes.
Now, last week, we went for it with an episode a little different for Creep Street, but still very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Still very spooky, I would still even say.
Absolutely. Unsettling, for sure.
Unsettling. That was the strange death of Brittany Murphy.
Oh, yeah. And we got a lot of wonderful people were loving that episode.
Yeah, thank you so much to all the kind words about that episode, and we're so happy that you enjoyed it. You found it eye-opening, all of these things. We appreciate it.
I think that's the right word, eye-opening. It's one of those things where it's not so much like a who killed her.
Right.
It's just like how and like who is this just weirdo that she was with?
Yeah, it's bizarre. It is truly bizarre. And if you guys have any theories on what you think happened, feel free to reach out to us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us on any of our social medias, really anything like that.
Absolutely.
But so last week, we did something a little different. But this week, it's October. We got to go for it, and we got to go for it hard.
Oh, rock hard.
Rock hard, baby. And this is our bread and butter.
Yes.
We're so happy to just be fucking going for it,
Mm-hmm.
Dylan, what are we talking about today?
We are kicking off October of 2022 with a haunting in San Pedro. Oh, folks. Mm-hmm. Now, this is just a little something up top. This is, I guess, considered by many to be one of the most violent hauntings in paranormal history.
That's scary.
Very freaky. And let me base this Halloween turkey with my sources here.
Okay.
First was a documentary called An Unknown Encounter, a true account of the San Pedro haunting. The San Pedro haunting, the true story of an extreme poltergeist, on a YouTube channel called The Paranormal Scholar, and a book called Haunted San Pedro by Brian Clune.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Dylan, for listing off our fabulous sources.
It's my pleasure. They were a treat to absorb. And, like we said, it's October. So we wanted to kick things off with a banger.
Yes.
And let's just go with a good old-fashioned haunting.
Yep.
Like I said, today's story is considered by many to be one of those violent cases in paranormal history. And it all revolves around a young woman and her family named Jackie Hernandez and the folks who tried to help her. In November of 1988, Jackie Hernandez had just gone through a nasty falling out with her husband and was in the midst of going through an ugly divorce.
Yikes. I mean, you hate to hear it, but this is a lot of the times, this is how these things start.
Exactly.
If you find someone's already in kind of a hard spot.
Right. And none of the sources I found really went into detail about the marriage and what brought it to an end, but Jackie left this man and moved with herself and her 2-year-old son, Jamie, into a small bungalow on East 11th Street there in San Pedro, California. And also at this time, Jackie was only a few months away from giving birth to her daughter, Samantha. So she's pregnant as well. So a very hectic time in her life.
Yes.
Now, Jackie, just for a brief bit of backstory, was born in Saratoga Springs and by all accounts had a very normal upbringing. There was nothing to indicate when she was young that she would have an experience like this. She wasn't prone to seeing spirits or anything like that. Well, almost immediately after moving in to their new home in San Pedro, things began to get strange. Now, what's funny is that although Jackie said she could sense some kind of a presence, when they first moved in, it actually was something that was kind of comforting, apparently. And it began mundanely enough, as these things do. Objects around the house would disappear and then reappear in other parts of the house. But the very first thing that happened that really caught Jackie's attention, that she couldn't ignore, she had a guest over, and while she was entertaining her guest, they both saw pencils go rocketing out of the pencil holder across the room on their own. That was kind of the first, okay.
Something's going on here.
You know what I mean. Jackie would hear strange knocking and banging noises coming from all around the house, but perhaps creepiest of all, she would often hear what sounded like mumbling coming from the attic.
Ooh.
On top of that, Jackie's cat began to act weird. It would often appear as if it was staring at something that no one else could see. How many times have we heard that?
Oh, yeah.
It would even chase things around the house like it was chasing something. And there was a bed in the house that would often sometimes compress as if someone invisible was laying down in the bed, sometimes even while Jackie was in it.
Ew, gross. It's such a weird violation. It's so bizarre.
It truly is. But it didn't stop there. Jackie began noticing a strange reddish-brown sort of viscous substance.
Gross.
That seemed to like seep out of the walls and trickle down from the ceiling. That spring, it was April of 1989. Her daughter was born and she couldn't have been more thrilled, yet it seemed as though when she returned home with the new baby, the strange activity drastically increased. It was around then that Jackie began to have these strange and very vivid nightmares. In these dreams, and it was always the same dream, Jackie would see a young man being violently beaten with a lead pipe, after which he would be dragged down to San Pedro Harbor and held underwater until he drowned. The dream was so vivid that there was no doubt this was San Pedro, California. But what was weird was that it appeared to be San Pedro in the 1930s. Each time Jackie had the dream, the details were all the same. She would start off watching this murder, but as it proceeded, she would then be seeing it from the perspective of the young man being killed. Every time she would have this awful dream, Jackie would wake up right as the young man died. Interesting.
Huh. That is very weird.
Right. So it starts off and she's an observer, and then by the end of it, she is the man being murdered. But Jackie tried not to let all this weird stuff get to her. As we know, she's going through a nasty divorce. She had just given birth. She thought maybe this was just a combination of stress and maybe the various hormones that are going through your body during and just after pregnancy.
Right.
But something would soon happen that forced Jackie to realize she was not hallucinating or imagining these things. Jackie would continue to have these dreams over the next few months. There was one night in particular where Jackie had this same reoccurring nightmare. And just at the moment where she usually woke up, Jackie woke up with a jolt. But now she was shaking and covered in sweat. For a moment, she sat on the edge of her bed trying to just catch her breath the best she could. After a few moments, Jackie got up to go use the restroom. And so she gets up, leaves her room, and she's walking down the hallway. It's a short hallway. And as she passed by her kid's bedroom, she froze in terror. There, sitting on her children's bunk bed, was an old man. His legs crossed. He glared at her angrily. And before she had time to even process what she was seeing, the apparition vanished before her eyes.
Wow. Yikes.
Yeah, old man sitting on the kid's bed, cross-legged.
Huh. Okay. And it's just like some old man.
Yes. And she said he appeared to be corpse-like. His skin was almost gray, like he was dead.
What the fuck?
I know. Well, this shakes Jackie to her core, as you can imagine. Jackie didn't even know what to do to process this, but unfortunately, this would be far from the last time that she would see this entity. One evening, Jackie was doing some chores around the house, and as she walked by the dining room, something once again caught her eye. There, sitting at the dining room table, was again this apparition of the old man. She would describe him as appearing corpse-like and, like I said, gray, pallid skin, and he was dressed in what appeared to be old-fashioned overalls with a red flannel vest. And just like before she even had a chance to process what she was seeing, the thing vanished. Well, as terrified as Jackie was, she's afraid to tell anyone because she doesn't want people to think she's losing it. She's a newly single mother. She's going through a nasty divorce. The last thing she needs is other folks thinking she's going batty.
Right.
She decides to keep it to herself. With a few exceptions, Jackie did have some close girlfriends with whom she would sort of confide in, but even when she would tell her friends about these weird things she was experiencing, it was always with the caveat of, oh, well, I'm probably just seeing things because of stress, sort of thing. Well, living next door to Jackie was one of her closest friends, a Susan Castaneda. Well, one night Susan's out having a stroll through the neighborhood. She's by herself. And as she's passing by Jackie's place, she's stunned to see someone standing in the window whom she did not recognize. It was an old man, dressed in old-timey looking overalls and a red flannel vest. He was looking out the window at her with a face of pure hatred. And just the pallor of the man's skin was gray, almost like a body.
Yikes.
Well, she saw this person staring daggers at her, so she briefly looked away so as not to look like she was gawking, but when she looked back, the person in the window was gone. Well, Susan obviously asked Jackie who the strange old man was that was in her house, and right away Jackie knew what Susan had seen. She told her everything that she had been experiencing in the house, and Susan was immediately like, hey, you need to reach out to someone who can help, whether it's a priest or a psychiatrist or something.
Right.
But Jackie is adamant that she didn't want word getting out that she was seeing things. Jackie's other close friend, Darlene, also experienced some strange things. One night, Jackie had to go out of town for some kind of engagement, and so her friend Darlene stayed the night at her place to babysit the kids. Now, from what I gather from the source, it was late at night, and the kids had already been put to bed sometime earlier, and Darlene was just watching some TV in the living room. Since it had been some time, Darlene got up just to quickly use the restroom and just check in on the kids, make sure they were sleeping soundly. But as she got up from the couch, she felt something weird. The hallway that was rather short seemed long for some reason, like it was a long stretching hallway.
What?
And the bedroom where the kids were was at the at the other end of this hallway. And that's when she heard a gruff voice say to her, "Don't you come in here." Well, Darlene dashed down the hallway and ran into the kids' bedroom, only to find them sound asleep as they had been. And there was no sign of anyone else.
Oh my God, that's horrifying.
Horrifying.
I'm glad that she was like going for it and went to the room anyway.
Absolutely.
But oh my God.
Yeah.
So scary.
Well, things were about to reach a level of terror that Jackie just could not ignore. One night, there came those strange noises again from the attic. Now, just FYI, this is not like a huge attic. To access it, it was in the laundry room where Jackie kept the washer dryer. And there was a little, like you see in many houses, there's a little chain thing hanging from the ceiling, and you would pull it down, and a little pull-down ladder would come down, and that's how you got up there. It wasn't that big. It was kind of cramped, As far as I know, Jackie, I don't even know if she had actually been up there herself since moving in. Maybe she had. They hadn't said that. So it's not like she would spend a lot of time up there. There wasn't anything up there. But on this particular night, the strange noises in the attic had become enough, and Jackie was not going to be scared out of her own home, especially since she wanted to be strong for her young children. So Jackie gets a flashlight, she pulls down the ladder, and right as she does, the noise coming from the attic stopped dead. Standing on the floor by the ladder, Jackie looks up from below and shines her flashlight up there. All is quiet. Of course, she doesn't want to actually climb up there to see, but she shakes it off and slowly begins to ascend the ladder. Taking a deep breath, Jackie reaches the top and pokes her head up into the attic to look. She shines her flashlight around, and there's nothing there. And like I said, it's a small attic, so it's not like someone could really hide,
Right.
Cautiously, Jackie looked around the attic, feeling some slight relief that there was nothing there. But that is when something caught her eye. Turning slowly with her flashlight, Jackie beheld a sight so horrifying that she froze in terror. There, floating in the corner of the attic, was the disembodied head of the old man. Frozen and unable to breathe, Jackie trembled as the floating head looked at her with such evil venom. And suddenly, the face's eyes and mouth opened wide and in a flash raced towards Jackie through the air. Screaming in terror, it was all Jackie could do to simply just throw herself back down the ladder, falling backwards into the laundry room. In a panic, Jackie fumbled around in the dark looking for the flashlight. And grabbing it, she turned it upwards towards the opening to the attic. Nothing was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
A disembodied head.
Yes, and she knew immediately it was that old man she had been seeing.
So, do you think this old man has just been up there muttering to himself?
I don't know. We'll get into theories as to who this thing was, who this person might have been later in the episode. Well, this was kind of the last straw, but not really for Jackie, but for her friend Susan. When Jackie told Susan about these repeated sightings of apparitions, Susan took things into her own hands. Susan had come across some kind of a paranormal television program, and from there she reached out to a paranormal investigator who was featured on the show. The man's name was Dr. Barry Taff. So a little bit about Barry Taff. He sort of made a name for himself in the 70s with the true story that inspired the movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey.
Yes. I do remember that. I forgot about that movie, but yes.
And when we do, because we will do that story, we'll get more into Barry then, because it was also kind of when he was first getting into this sort of thing. So it's very interesting, and so we'll kind of save a lot of his backstory for that. But that was where he kind of cut his teeth, was on that big case. Along with Dr. Taff would come Barry Conrad, who was a cameraman who worked for several ABC and NBC affiliate stations in Ohio and Colorado, and a Jeff Wheatcraft. Throughout the 70s, Wheatcraft worked as an elementary school teacher, but in 1980 moved to New York City to pursue a career in photography. Now, they initially were very interested in this case, but Jackie wouldn't even speak to them. She did not want her life being turned upside down. But as 1989 progressed and things only got worse, she eventually, in August of that year, reached out to Dr. Taff herself, saying she had reached a breaking point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this brings us to their first in-person investigation on the night of August 8th, 1989. It was Dr. Taff, Barry Conrad, and Jeff Wheatcraft, and another guy named Larry, who I don't really know anything about. I guess he was just another... There's every now and then there's a couple other people that kind of come in and out of this story, who are just kind of helping.
Good old Larry.
Good old Larry. They get to the home and they set up and they start off just kind of doing standard photography of the house, and of course doing an in-depth interview with Jackie to hear what she has, been experiencing. And the first thing they noticed was an odd smell, a foul sort of odor that was very similar to what Dr. Taff had encountered while working on the entity case in the 70s. Jeff Wheatcraft apparently came into this the biggest skeptic of all of them, but ironically, it would be him later on that would have the craziest experiences outside of Jackie herself. Now, while Jeff had been skeptical, he was very polite. Everyone says he just kind of quietly listened to what Jackie had to say, and the part in particular about the floating head made him kind of on the inside kind of roll his eyes a little bit, but nevertheless, he suggested, well, hey, why don't we all go to the attic to have a look? So Jeff goes up there, at first by himself, with his camera. Not a video camera, but like for snapping photos.
Oh, yeah.
And he said it was rather simple, small attic, but once he was up there, he said he started to have the feeling that he was being watched.
There it is.
Like eyes were on him, and that there was always something standing right behind him. Well, Jeff is up there, and one of the team suggests that since he was having this feeling of someone being behind him, why doesn't he try holding the camera over his shoulder and just snapping some photos behind him without looking, just to see if they catch anything? So Jeff does this. He holds his camera up over his shoulder, pointed behind him. He snaps a photo. Click. Nothing. He snaps another photo. Click. Nothing. But just as he snapped a third photo, Jeff's camera was suddenly ripped from his hands. Everyone in the house suddenly hear Jeff scream up in the attic, and they all come running. As they look up the ladder, Jeff emerges from the attic as pale and white as a ghost, clearly shaken by something. After taking a few minutes to compose himself, Jeff went back up into the attic, this time with a flashlight, but to his surprise, the camera wasn't where it would have been, where he would have dropped it, where it would have fallen.
Right.
At first, he couldn't find it, but after a moment, he sees that the lens of the camera has been detached and was sitting in the corner face down. And in the other corner was the body of the camera laying face down inside of a small crate. Well, this time, Dr. Taff and the cameraman, Barry Conrad, they go up to the attic with Jeff. And immediately they notice that when in the attic, all of their cameras would die. And the second they would come down from the attic, they would start working again. On top of that, Barry Conrad claimed to have seen Jeff get pushed with his own eyes by something invisible. Jeff claimed he could feel what felt like a bony hand pushing him on his back.
Yikes.
Yeah.
A bony hand.
A bony hand, friends.
That's not a good hand.
Not a good hand at all. And the moment they came back down, they could all hear the sound of heavy footsteps walking around in the attic. They could all hear it, and you could actually hear it very well in the documentary. Jeff climbed back up the ladder to have a peek himself, and the moment he stuck his head into the attic, the sound immediately stopped. Well, Jeff waited silently for a few moments when suddenly 3 quick flashes of light caught his eye. He tells everyone to be quiet for a moment as he waits for something else to happen. And that's when Jeff noticed a large black mass moving across the attic. There was just enough light coming up from the house below that he could tell this was not just a shadow, but an actual black mass that he claimed to be about 3 sizes that of a regular person. Well, the night carried on, and after a bit of time, some people left except the court team. And it was now after 4 in the morning when they all saw this strange seeping liquid that Jackie had been telling them about.
Ugh.
It seemed to be seeping down the walls, and obviously they did a thorough search to make sure it wasn't coming from pipes or anything, and if it wasn't. So they were able to collect some of this and take it in for testing. Now, this is wild. They tested this stuff, and it came back showing that it was actually human blood plasma that came from a male's blood.
Ew, that's so gross.
Blood plasma.
And so scary. Oh my
Weird.
God. So just there's blood, essentially. Just blood.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's blood plasma. It's not the same thing. But still, I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like.
It seems like the weirder thing for it to be blood plasma.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's so weird.
Keep in mind, they got all this stuff on their very first time visiting the place.
It popped off quick.
It popped off quick. It was ready to put on a show. Well, in the morning of August 28th, 1989, the team received a frantic call from Jackie that morning. She had a friend named Chrissy over, and both of them were witness to these strange orbs of light dancing around the ceiling. Though she couldn't actually touch these orbs, Jackie described them as sort of having a gelatin sort of appearance. She explains how they would kind of appear, and then they would even divide, and then sort of sometimes even come back together, almost like a jelly substance. What's wild is that some of our UFO stories we've covered have sightings like this. Things in the sky that seem to like separate and then come back together, you know.
Oh, that's true. Oh, weird.
These orbs also appeared to be self-illuminating. Later on, when they would take photos, you could tell like it would be illuminating the carpet beneath them. Like it was clearly a light. It was creating its own light. On top of that, Jackie was now regularly hearing breathing throughout the house, like someone was standing right by her that she couldn't see. She couldn't sleep or even be alone in the house. She was growing worried for her children and herself. But on the night of September 4th, 1989, the haunting escalated to a level that no one, not even pros like Dr. Taff and his team, were prepared for. Jackie calls the team in such a panic she can barely speak. Objects were being thrown around the house. Kids' toys were levitating. There were voices, breathing noises, doors opening and slamming, lights flickering. She's terrified. And all throughout the call, her call kept getting disconnected, like something kept hanging up the phone.
Oh, yep.
Finally, the team is like, okay, we're just coming over right now. So the team races over, and Jackie assumes they're coming to pick her up and take her and the kids somewhere safe, but instead they brought their equipment ready to investigate.
Oh, God. I mean, I get it, but it's just, I mean, I don't know.
With them that night was another man named Gary Bohm. He was an associate and a friend of the team members, so he was there helping out. They quickly did some checking around the house before deciding Jeff and Gary would go up into the attic, since that seemed to be where the wildest stuff was happening, or at least that's where it seemed to be emanating from. As you can imagine, Jeff was a little uneasy about going back into the attic after what he had experienced, but since he wasn't going up alone, he felt okay doing it. But Jeff was about to have an experience that would take things to a whole new level. It was about 12:50 a.m. when Jeff and Gary climbed into the attic. Jeff and Gary are, looking around for about 5 or 10 minutes when Barry Conrad, the cameraman, calls up from below saying that there might be something happening down in the main house. Barry had caught a glimpse of a light, and then clear as day, Barry and Jackie and her friend Susan, they all heard the sound of someone snapping their fingers 3 times as if they did it right by their ear. It was clear as day. Snap, snap, snap. Well, Gary was near the exit of the attic, and Jeff was in the center of the attic about. Just as Jeff is about to take a step towards the exit, something happened. Everyone heard Jeff scream. Gary turned back around to see an awful sight. Somehow a cord, you would hang clothes on, like a laundry line or whatever, had been wrapped around Jeff's neck, with the other end hung on a nail on the rafters. Jeff was in the middle of being hanged.
Oh my God.
His feet were off the ground. The only thing giving Jeff any sort of leverage was there was these wood slats that were kind of at a diagonal that would kind of prop up the roof, the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And Jeff kind of had his legs wrapped around this thing, trying to give himself leverage so it didn't, his full weight wouldn't be on his throat. From Jeff's perspective, he said all he could remember was a brief moment of darkness, and then the next thing he knew, he was being strangled by this cord. They were able to get Jeff down, and when they got him downstairs, there was a nasty mark around his neck. They, of course, were documenting this, and Barry Conrad had his camera rolling, and that's when Barry noticed a ball of light in front of the camera. He pulled his head away from the camera, but whatever it was, he couldn't see with his own eyes, but putting his head back to the camera, he could see it again through the lens. That's when Conrad said he felt what felt sort of like a static electricity, and he blacked out. Once they got Barry to come back too, they got everyone outside, and Jeff was now even having these bad headaches. So now you got Barry passed out, Jeff nearly was hung. So they stay outside a while to kind of get some fresh air and rest, and thinking on their feet, Jackie got the kids up and brought them outside as well, just to be safe. The group was all out there going over what had just happened and what their next steps were, and it was about 1:40 a.m., and that's when they noticed something on little Samantha's forehead. Keep in mind, she's just an infant. She's just a few months old. It was a deep red mark. And it had not been there just minutes ago. But what's interesting is that they were able to actually wipe it away.
Oh.
Who knows what? It wasn't like a mark, like a bruise or something.
Right. Oh, that's weird.
Now, they were never able to test this stuff because Jackie had wiped it away, but it was this like dark red mark on the child's forehead. And what's interesting is Jackie claimed when she went back in to get the kids, she had spoke out loud saying, "You leave my kids alone.
Yeah.
No matter what, don't mess with the kids." It was almost like this thing was saying, "I'll do what I want."
I could if I wanted to.
Yeah. By 3 a.m., everyone had left the house, and that would actually be the last time that Jeff Wheatcraft would step foot in that house. But that doesn't mean the weird shit stopped. No.
No, honey.
When reviewing the footage at the studio, just before Barry fainted, when they were all examining Jeff's neck, there was a little ball of light zipping around them that they hadn't seen while filming. In fact, as they were reviewing all the footage, there were tons of these little orbs they hadn't seen while filming. In one rather unsettling instance, there's footage of an interview. They're interviewing Jackie, and the camera's just on Jackie. And it appears as if one of these little balls of light actually goes into her head.
What the f***?
Yeah, and Jackie did not like that.
Yeah, no.
Well, in October of 1989, enough was enough, and though she didn't have much money, Jackie moved her and her children out of the house. They moved to a trailer about 300 miles north of San Pedro in the town of Weldon, California. But almost immediately, it was apparent that whatever was haunting the family in San Pedro had followed them to Weldon. It started off with strange scratching sounds coming from the old tool shed in the yard. Then it quickly escalated to mumbling and voices inside the trailer. One night, a blanket on one of their beds spontaneously caught on fire.
Oh God, that's scary as fuck.
And it was nothing pre-existing to the trailer, by the way. The neighbors had all said nothing strange had happened in the area till Jackie moved in. And kind of like how Susan, her neighbor in San Pedro, the neighbors would kind of see weird shit happen too.
Yeah.
And they said none of it had happened till Jackie moved there. So it's not like this place was already haunted or something.
Right.
A few of her neighbors in April of 1990 were moving a large flat-screen TV that was held in the shed, and as they were moving out, I don't know if they were moving it out to sell it or get rid of it, but they had noticed a reflection in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, a face. It was the old man.
Oh no, come on.
Oh yeah. Well, Jackie immediately gets on the horn to Dr. Barry Taff and tells him all the wacky shit that's going on up in their new home. And they'd say, hey, we want to come up and document these things ourselves. So one night in April, it was actually a full moon, and it was just about midnight when Jeff and Barry Conrad, the cameraman, pulled up in a van. Some of the neighbors had even come over for an investigation, and right away they were seeing strange things. This thing was not shy.
Yeah.
Strange lights, black shadows moving about, etc. Well, this group wasn't about to just wait around for things to get wild. Oh, no. At Jackie's request, they busted out an old Ouija board.
Oh, Jackie.
Hoping to elicit some kind of real reaction from this thing and maybe get some answers. And answers did they get.
Oh, goodness.
As they were setting up the little area to do the spirit session, the temperature in the place became freezing. It was so cold they even had to start a fire in the little fireplace that the trailer had. They set up a little area, and from the moment they began, the table began to shake beneath them, and the candles flickered.
Oof.
It was giving them answers so fast that they couldn't even keep up. Someone had like a pen and paper and were writing down the responses.
Wow.
From their questions, they were told by the spirit that they had been murdered, drowned in the San Pedro Bay in 1930. And when they asked how many ghosts actually lived among the living, they were given an answer. Phantoms fill the skies around you.
What the fuck?
I know, right?
Phantoms fill the skies around you?
Ooh, freaky, right?
Oh, God. So they've got a lot going on.
Oh, yes. Well, Jeff asks why all this weird shit had been happening to him. Why did he get like almost strangled to death? And, things had been happening in their own homes, the investigators. Like, why was it focusing energy on him? And they got the response, because you are the likeness of my killer.
Whoa.
I guess he looked like whoever supposedly killed this man.
Yes.
And then Barry asked the spirit if there was anyone in the room that it had hatred for. And it responded, spelling out the name Jeff.
Yikes. Yikes.
Just then, a great force struck Jeff, sent him airborne, flying out of his chair and crashing violently against the wall. There was another woman there named Tina. She was a neighbor and friend of Jackie's. She was participating in this seance. She immediately got up screaming and ran out of the house. The violence with which Jeff was thrown, many of them were certain that he had just been killed.
Yeah.
Barry got up and ran to Jeff, who surprisingly was pretty much fine other than being dazed. Jackie gave her son to Tina, who was outside, and ran back to get Samantha, who was asleep in the back room. So, once again, back in San Pedro, Barry Conrad, the cameraman, is intrigued by these answers that the Ouija board gave them. So he pays a visit to the local newspaper, the News Pilot, there in San Pedro, and he starts going through old microfiche.
Yikes. Here we go.
Looking through things from the 1930s, seeing if he can find anything that kind of lined up with the answers they were given. Mm-hmm. And he found an article from 1930 that seemed to line up with those answers. The body of a young sailor named Herbert Hendrickson had been found near the 22nd Street landing. And when the body was found, they were sure it had been due to foul play. But because of a lack of evidence, they just marked it up on the death certificate to accidental death.
Oh, wow.
Now, Hendrickson was a young sailor who worked on a lumber ship called the Astoria, which docked there in San Pedro Bay. What's also interesting is that when news of Jackie's haunting began to make the rounds, sailors and fishermen were quick to notice that the cord that Jeff had been nearly strangled by, the knot that was tied on it was a particular knot that is commonly used by sailors.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing, the victim was a young man, a young sailor, but this specter they've been seeing is an old man. And that's why many have always wondered if there wasn't two entities in this house. Well, things in Weldon were getting so bad that in June of 1990, Jackie and her family left Weldon and moved back to San Pedro, moving into an apartment complex located on 7th Street. But before even moving in, Jackie had a priest come and bless the apartments since she figured this thing was going to just follow them anyway. Jackie was able to capture more incredible footage of these orbs of light. And I know orbs gets thrown around a lot, and I know that a lot of them can be explained away with dust, bugs, things like that. Mm-hmm. No, like I said, these things were literally self-illuminating. You can see in the photos that they are illuminating the carpet below them.
Weird. That is so bizarre.
But here's another wild thing. Not only would this thing follow Jackie, but it followed the investigators home as well. Oftentimes, they would come home to find their stoves on, burning, like the burners on.
Oh, God.
Jeff found 2 pairs of scissors laying open, each one beneath a pillow on the bed.
Oh, God.
And he didn't know where these scissors came from. Objects would be moved and rearranged, and even one of the homes had a broken window. Jeff also found a broom standing on top of the stove, like on its end.
What the fuck?
It had been fast so it was up against the wall. Yeah, it had been placed on the stove. Well, they cleaned up the glass from the broken window and they threw it all the shards out into a dumpster outside. And when they came back in, a large shard of this glass was standing upright on the typewriter.
Oh my God, that reminds me of Annabelle, the movie.
The scissors, like I said, were also weird because they didn't know where these scissors were coming from. There's one clip of footage where they're in the kitchen because they had just found one of these pairs of scissors was laying on the floor right in front of the kitchen sink. And as they're approaching it, all of a sudden there's a loud bang, and you turn around, pair of scissors had fallen from nowhere and had landed on top of the stove.
Oh.
Where did these things come from?
Yeah, what the fuck?
The activity at Barry Conrad's apartment just kept getting worse. On one occasion while they were filming, Jeff was pushed onto a bed, saying he felt a hand push him like he did before, but this one felt different. He said it felt like it was from a smaller source. And when he lifted up his shirt, Jeff had scratches on his back. Well, on December 4th, 1990, the activity at Barry's apartment came to a head when him and Jeff and some others, they had been in Beverly Hills that evening filming a Christmas party. When they came back home that evening, something was waiting for them. Every time they would try to document it in one room, something would happen in another room. It was like this thing was always a step ahead of them. At one point, some sort of ink mark appeared on the camera lens, as if someone had taken felt tip pens and scribbled all over them. There was even a squealing noise coming from the kitchen. They ran into the kitchen to find that the teapot had been set to boil on the stove. Thinking on their feet, of course, they turned the stove off and they left an envelope there with a pen, hoping maybe this thing would leave a message for them on the stove. 5 minutes later, they came back in to see the envelope was on fucking fire.
Yeah, I kind of thought that would happen.
Later that night, they heard a noise in the kitchen, went back in to find a box of .22 caliber rifle bullets.
What?
On the stove. Thank God they had found it before it got lit on fire.
The fuck?
I know. Before that night ended, Gary was filming and he saw one of these lights in his lens that seemed to float into Jeff, just as it had Jackie. And a moment later, Jeff was pushed against the wall. He would say it felt like he was being compelled from the inside. Even in the editing bay at the studio, things were happening. Lights going on and off, etc. And now this is actually where the documentary ends. Now, this documentary was made in 1997, and at the time, the activity had apparently greatly diminished, though Jackie claimed there was still something following the family. I have no idea about where she is now, what she's doing now.
Wow. What a crazy story. And kind of like how you said, these things kind of happen. Oftentimes it's like it just kind of out of nowhere just kind of slows down or just stops.
Absolutely. It's just like all of a sudden, and that's the thing is, that's why they've almost wondered if it was more than one thing. Maybe this was a blend of an actual intelligent haunting with some sort of poltergeist-like.
Right, I could see that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the energy is just attracted to her or to the family or something, and so like multiple energies or multiple entities or whatever.
Right. I mean,
I don't know.
Talk about like, even though Jackie wasn't a teenager, she was in her early 20s. She's got all from having babies and stuff, with these, maybe there was something going on. People have wondered if maybe there were two spirits. Maybe this old man thing was a manifestation of her own poltergeist
weird
phenomenon.
Yeah.
And like when she went to Weldon and all those weird things happened, that was her own poltergeist thing. But then there was also this other entity, this young sailor.
Right,
trying
to
get help, like let people know he had been killed.
Insane.
What?
I mean, that makes sense, I guess, that it would be multiple different things.
Right, it's just a theory. I mean, who knows? But I mean, what a wild, wild story, and what a hell of a way to kick off October 2022.
That is right. Dylan, thank you so much for doing all of that fantastic, fantastic research. Like you said, one hell of a way to start off October, baby. It's Halloween season. We're going for it. And what a scary, weird haunting.
Very freaky. I wish I could find more about Jackie and where she is, where the kids are, how they're doing, and all that stuff. But yeah, very fascinating.
Yeah, so fascinating.
Well, Maureen, I got a list of names. I wouldn't mind making a bump in the night.
Oh, come on.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Folks, the names of our top-tier Patreon subscribers, of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finished Face via Longfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the Oh-So-Suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the notorious Nicholas Barker, the terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the loathsome Johnny Love, the carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the killer stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the awfully awesome Annie, the murderous Maggie Leach, the serve sexy Sam Hackworth, the evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the maniacal Laura Maynard, the vicious Karen Van Buren, the arch nemesis Aaron Bird, the sadistic Sergio Castillo, the rapscallion Ryan Crum, the beast Benjamin Huang, the devilish Chris Doucette, the psycho Sam, the electric Emily Zhang, the ghoulish Gert Hankum, and the renegade Corey Ramos.
Wow. Thank you so much to our top tier Patreon subscribers. We couldn't do this without you, and we are so happy to have you all on board. And a big thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, and just a big thank you to all of you for listening and having us be a part of your October celebrations.
Of course. And of course, like, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, family, loved ones. Evangelize the name of Creep Street. Give us a thumbs up or a 5 stars on whatever you listen to us on, whether it's
please
Apple, Spotify, YouTube, CastBox, I don't know, the millions of other things we're on. Just give us one of those good reviews, and as always, keep it creepy, friends.
Please do.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.